there are 7 prophecies that determine, according to God, humanity's future. I can't say enough times that God is the one that invented prophecy, and Jesus is the one that introduced biblical prophecy in Matthew 24 that we've studied many times. And he said, I want you to know, I want you to be able to see, I want you to be able to understand what's going on. So prophecy is a gift from God for us to understand what he's doing in the world. So what is God doing in the world? Well, if you read these 7 prophecies, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38, Daniel 9, Zechariah 12, Luke 21, Revelation 11, and Revelation 13, what you find is a grid that you can plot and watch what Jesus called birth pains. Now, he says that in Matthew 24, and I'm not even going to refer to all that's going on in Matthew 24, which for most of you that have watched more than a few of these prophetic updates, I always talk about Matthew 24. I'm just going to say Jesus told us there's going to be this growing crescendo, kind of the rising amplification of global events that have always been going on around the world, but the generation that starts seeing what's going on all the way around the world, global events. Jesus describes events the whole world would be witnessing at the same time. What are those events? Well, let's go through them from this chart, okay? Psalm 83 tells us there's going to rise an Islamic Confederacy that's going to seek Israel's annihilation. Now, Psalm 83 is a historic psalm. It's not a prophetic psalm. Psalm 83 is a record of all the different nations that at different times were attacking Israel and seeking not just to take their grain or take their crops or enslave them, but to cause them to cease to be a nation, to annihilate them, to wipe them out. It's a historic record of a vast group of people across a long chronological period that want to annihilate Israel. Now, look back. It's amazing that those same geographic groups of people are all Islamic today. They were all different groups worshiping all different gods. Now they're all Islamic. They have joined a confederacy. They seek Israel's annihilation, just like Psalm 83 says. Ezekiel 38, another great chapter to study. Ezekiel 38 says 2 key nations are going to mobilize and as armies attack Israel in a ground and whatever else invasion. But they're going to come with hordes of soldiers. They might send hundreds of missiles, and they might do a lot of other stuff, but they're going to come as soldiers across the mountains. That's why you should read this. Ezekiel 38 say Iran and Russia are going to lead an invasion of Israel. Daniel 9 says the West is going to ensure. Now, think about that. Not ensure, not pull out a policy, but ensure. That means protect Israel, look at this, from being wiped out. Do you realize it actually says that? Does that make you think anything about the news? Wait till I show you what's happened. Remember, this update is 1 month since I did the September update. Wait till you see the headlines that have crossed your screen, both your television screen and your computer screen and your phone screen in the last 30 days. I mean, I've been studying prophecy since I was a little boy. My father always told me the story of how he had his, what he called a transistor radio. He was so proud of that, listening to the attack on Israel by all the nations in 1967, the Six-Day War, and he listened to it, and he heard the proclamation of Israel, going to be annihilated and everything that happened. He even talked about, as a little boy, he would hear his grandfather talk about Israel, and they sat around the family radio and listened to the proclamation of Israel as a nation in 1948. So I've come from a prophetic family, but I've never seen what I'm going to show you has happened in the last 30 days. Okay, Zechariah 12 tells us that there's going to be a final global hatred of Israel. That means everything you're seeing now, the tens of thousands of people marching yesterday in London, the man last night that did self-immolation, he dumped gasoline on himself and lit himself in front of the Capitol or the White House. I couldn't tell from the news where it was. It was in Washington, D.C. All of that, look, isn't going to be local. It's going to be global. God says in Zechariah 12, there is going to be all the world hating Israel, and not just hating and boycotting and getting up when the leader of Israel speaks at the UN and leaving the building, as happened last week. They're going to come together and march as armies. That's what Armageddon is, by the way. That's what prompts Christ's return, by the way. This global hatred of Israel is why the Lord comes back, because finally when Satan has convinced everyone to attack Israel, in that moment, Jesus returns and stops them and destroys the army and says, this is it. And he steps in as the king, sitting on the throne of David, and establishes the kingdom and actually makes Israel the head of all the nations of earth. I mean, that, and you can read about that, and that's not what we're covering today, but you can study that with us in our Revelation course, okay? Back to the slides so I can get through this. Luke 21 says there's going to be deadly terror as humans watch weather catastrophes. Let's see, Milton, is that the name of the current hurricane that is the largest storm on the planet in the last 12 months? Earth hasn't seen a storm this powerful, and it's right now bearing down on Florida. Wow. Revelation 11, there's going to be a final global money and tracking system. We'll talk about that. The news is rife with, filled with reports. And then Revelation 13 says there's going to be a global religion led by Satan's beast.